Good morning, opiate clusters. Okay, greetings from the near north. This is the disclosure of my presenter bias, all right? I am not here to speak for the law enforcement organizations that I have the privilege of supporting. I'm not here to speak for the elephants, rhinos, or baby giraffes at the Oklahoma City Zoo. And I'm not even here to speak for the Estonians, so I'm not sure who I'm here to speak for. I think maybe common sense, if that might give you a little bit of foreshadowing, all right? So, iconic images of our beloved United States of America. Oh yeah, there's that too. Okay. So that keeps some of us busy, and busy in ways that we sometimes wish we wouldn't have to be, all right? Now, so I do not suggest that we put our head in the sand and ignore that and just do as we've done for the last 20 or 30 years, because look where that has led us today, and the problem is not decreasing, the problem is increasing. So we can't keep applying the same solutions over and over and over again and expect different results. We all know what that is, the definition of it. So there are some very well thought programs. The American College of Emergency Physicians at its last council meeting back in Seattle in October passed with pretty significant support a policy that very much encouraged emergency physicians to seriously consider prescribing naloxone to the family or the victim themselves of an opiate overdose. And so this has some very significant, not pre-test probability, because the test has already been done. Okay? That person has found themselves in a very difficult status because of opiate abuse or opiate addiction. So there is a very high return on investment, if you will, in the serious consideration of writing a prescription for this. Or more specifically, that drug in this format, right? Nasal atomization, intranasal delivery. That is a completely different animal, I would submit to you, than saying, let's put one of those on every one of these. Okay? It sounds good, right? I mean, our law enforcement officers are out there to protect the public, to increase public safety, to make life better. And so in the process of them doing their duties, sometimes they are first on scene. There certainly are likely more squad cars than ambulances or fire apparatus in your community. So what's wrong with that? I mean, it sounds like such a good thing. And no less than 17 states now have passed legislation approving, and in the process of approving, let's just say endorsing, encouraging, supporting, wanting naloxone to be in the hands of non-paramedics, non-EMS personnel, specifically, in most cases, law enforcement officers. So I have to say, when I sit there and think, well, what is wrong with that? Could there be something less than bliss? I start feeling like Terry Valenzuela. So here's my obligatory furry kitten with a big-ass gun slide. Love you, Terry. So I would just ask you to consider 5 things, okay? I'm not here to say this is bad for your community, period, or this is good for your community, period. But regardless of what is being legislated, and there is always danger to legislation of medicine, look at how fast the science changes from not just this conference to next year's conference. Look how fast science changes from this conference to the next major EMS conference. And look how we ardently struggle to keep abreast of that emerging literature. How in the world can legislating bodies ever hope to do the same thing? They can't. So, good or bad, by definition, they're always going to be behind the power curve on this. So, I think the train has left the station. What I honestly worry about is there are no tracks out of that station. So you, as a key EMS leader in your community, I hope that you have the ability, I hope that you have the voice, I hope that you have the passion to at least help frame the debate and whatever plan that is going to emerge, okay? So 5 considerations. No question, naloxone is a drug. It is an effective drug, but it is not a benign drug. If it was a benign drug, we wouldn't be talking about opiate withdrawal. That is a real pathophysiologic problem, okay? It's not just waking the dragon in the back of your unit, okay? It is a real pathophysiologic problem. And I'm not here to say that opiate withdrawal is necessarily worse than opiate arrest. Of course it's not. But for someone that is spontaneously breathing and circulating and maintaining some reasonable level of oxygenation and ventilation, or that can be supported by maybe even non-invasive means of supplemental oxygenation and ventilation, and we heard yesterday, maybe we're targeting oxygenation levels that don't even need to be targeted that high. So why would we suddenly want to put them into opiate withdrawal? And if we have to think about that with the medical backgrounds that we have, is that fair to put our law enforcement officers in that same situation? I'm putting that out there for your consideration. Okay? Consideration number 2. Okay? What is truly needed in an opiate-mediated cardiac arrest? Is it naloxone? We've had a lot of good discussions this morning about cardiac arrest, and we know the difference makers. I would really ask you to think about, is naloxone the difference maker in opiate-mediated cardiac arrest, especially in an arrest that may have been down for more than just a few minutes? Okay? Maybe the converse, okay, on the other end of the spectrum, what's really needed in an altered mental status patient that is spontaneously breathing and circulating? Okay, why are we giving it? What is the endpoint? Are we giving it to give a drug? I mean, you know, every call's better if we give a drug, right? But is it really? Consideration number 3, okay? This will apply to some of you. This will absolutely not apply to others of you. This is why one size truly doesn't fit all. But let's just say that you are in a large urban area. Honestly, what is the time lag from police arrival to BLS EMS or even ALS EMS? And do you know that? Have you measured that? You probably should. And so if it's 2, 3, or 4 minutes, is naloxone realistically going to be given in that time frame? I think that's a fair consideration. Is it free? No, it's not free. Okay? Price check as of yesterday, at least for our system, is $17 for a 2 milligram vial. So $17 is not going to necessarily break the bank, but let's just think about how many squad cars there are, and what is the pre-test probability of any one of those squad cars and the officer in them in giving that drug to just the right fit person. We won't even go into the cooking the naloxone, freezing the naloxone, where you carry the naloxone, okay? But it's not free. So how much is it going to be in your particular system, and who's going to pay it? Okay? These legislation programs, great. Just this minor details, okay? Who's going to carry it? What kind of training are they going to get on it? What's it going to cost? Even if there are grant monies up front, do they sustain the program? And finally, is it readily available today? There have been problems in months past, depending on what form of naloxone you carry or what strength that you want to carry. But if it's readily available today, if we put it on all of these squad cars, let alone layperson scripts, which I already told you I'm in favor of, but if we add it to the squad cars, if we add it to the BLS units, do you think it's going to continue to be readily available? There is not an infinity capability in the production of naloxone. So I don't offer this in any kind of arrogant way. I offer this as one solution in a state, my state, that has already passed legislation, a complete disconnect between the Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services and the Department of Health. So I don't know where that broke down, but essentially this legislation got through, and we've got some fine folks in our state EMS office that say, wait a minute, what are we supposed to do with this now for our non-paramedic personnel? Because that's not in the scope of practice. Again, small details that are not so small that get overlooked in the passage of legislation. So this is one guideline that can be applied in a non-ALS EMS setting. So applied to law enforcement, applied to BLS, and I just offer that as a resource, right? So step one is, don't try to tackle this on your own, okay? Activate the system that works best for patients that may find themselves in a world hurt related to opiates, okay? But here's trying to right-size the naloxone. If they're already awake, or you can wake them up, seriously, why are we giving naloxone? If they're breathing normally, seriously, why would you give naloxone? If they're apneic, seriously, why would you not focus on chest compressions? If they're agonal, seriously, why would you not focus on chest compressions? So, are they breathing, maybe not completely normally, but at least every 3 to 5 seconds? Yeah, let's put them in some kind of recovery position. Let's put them in a supportive position. So, only after you answer these questions might it make sense for non-ALS EMS personnel to consider the administration of naloxone in whatever dose you might think appropriate. Crawford is exactly right. The science is less than complete on that. So, I appreciate your time this morning. I'm asking questions more than providing answers because there seriously is not a one-size-fits-all. But you're here as a key thought leader in your community. These are the kind of things, I think, that have to frame the debate on a locality-by-locality basis. And don't be afraid. This is part of the power of this conference. Don't be afraid to have the audacity to be honest about what your own local reality is and question that. And so this message has definitely not been brought to you by the Feel Good, Do Good Coalition, the manufacturers of naloxone, the Estonians, the rhinos, the elephants, or the baby giraffes at the Oklahoma City Zoo. Thank you so much for your time.